You have been told your whole life that sleep is a kind of shutting down, a surrender, a drifting away into nothingness where the body lies useless and the mind simply fires off nonsense images until morning. But I tell you this, that story was planted in you, it was taught, repeated, enforced, and it was never true. When your eyes close, when your breath slows, when the hum of the world fades into quiet, you do not vanish. You cross a threshold. You shift. Your consciousness begins its nightly migration into a realm that does not fit into the neat boxes your teachers and scientists tried to build. And I have been watching humanity forget this for millennia. From the first time a child shook awake from a dream of fire or flight, the adults leaned over them and said, "It was nothing." They said, "Forget it." They said, "Just a dream." And each time something sacred was buried. Each time, a seed of remembrance was smothered under the weight of disbelief. You were born with vision. You were born with access. In those earliest nights you soared through layers of memory and symbol, speaking with ancestors you had no words to describe, feeling presences that the waking world does not permit. But the culture around you nudged you away, told you to color inside the lines, memorize your tables, focus on the solid ground of daylight. The system wanted you productive, not perceptive. It wanted you measurable, not mystical. And so you learned to silence the voice of your own soul. You learned to ignore the journeys that unfolded behind your eyelids. Do you see the pattern? This is not carelessness. This is design. A society that laughs at dreams is easier to rule. A man who doubts his own nightly visions is easier to herd into the narrow pasture of routine. When you, an elder who has lived through decades of work and loss and quiet victories, close your eyes at night, you may still feel that flicker of something more. You may wake with a taste of a place you cannot name, a conversation you never had in daylight, an image so sharp it lingers long after coffee. And yet you brush it off. You've been trained to, but inside you that flicker remains. Call to it now. Sleep is not silence. Sleep is initiation. You were never unconscious. Even when your body collapses in exhaustion, your awareness does not stop. It travels. It listens. It records. And I, Thoth, have always known this. In the temples of Egypt, initiates were guided into chambers of darkness not to rest, but to learn. They would lie still while their spirits slipped free, wandering through layers of the astral, collecting lessons they would carry back upon waking. These were not fairy tales, not hallucinations. They were as real as stone, as real as breath. But what has your world done with this knowledge? It has buried it under fluorescent classrooms, factory shifts, digital screens. It has told you that rest is laziness, that dreaming is childish, that intuition is dangerous. And you have paid the price. Your nights have been stolen. Your dream muscles, once strong, have grown weak. You were never meant to sleep in ignorance. You were meant to explore. You were meant to remember. Think of all the times you dismissed the strange feeling of déjà vu, the certainty that you had lived a moment before. That was not imagination. That was your consciousness brushing against the field of time in your sleep, touching tomorrow before the sun rose on it. Think of the nights you woke sweating from a nightmare that felt too real, too heavy, too precise to dismiss. That was not chaos. That was a reflection of your own inner wounds, made visible in the astral mirror. And think of the times you woke with a sudden clarity, a solution, a phrase, an idea that seemed to arrive from nowhere. That was your nightly schooling, your soul carrying back fragments from the other side. And yet, you've been taught to laugh at it, to bury it under schedules and obligations. I am telling you now, stop laughing, stop burying, stop surrendering your nights to the lie that they mean nothing. Every night is a doorway. The only reason you do not walk through with awareness is because you have been conditioned to turn your head away. And I know you have carried that conditioning for a lifetime. You were raised in an America that praised work and scorned stillness, that glorified hustle and sneered at silence. You were told that your worth was measured by output, by hours, by productivity. And in that arithmetic of profit, sleep became weakness. To be caught dreaming was to be accused of sloth. And yet, inside you, your soul kept whispering. It whispered in moments you couldn't explain. It whispered when you met someone and felt you already knew them. It whispered when you stood in a place for the first time but recognized it with the weight of memory. Those whispers were not tricks. They were traces of your nightly travels, leaking into your days. The wall between your waking and dreaming has never been as solid as you were told. That wall is thin, and it is thinning further each time you pay attention. I know what you fear. You fear that all those years you spent ignoring your dreams have left you too old, too far gone to reclaim the gift. But I tell you this, the doorway has never closed. Age does not dim it. The soul does not wither. If anything, your decades of lived experience have prepared you to understand what once frightened you. The child who dreamt of falling and woke in terror had no language to decode it. But you, who have lived through loss, can see now that the fall was not punishment but surrender. The nightmare was not cruelty but invitation. You are ready now to reclaim your nights, and I, as the keeper of these laws, urge you to do so. You may ask, why was this truth hidden? Why were we all trained to forget? And the answer is simple. A man who knows he is infinite is very hard to control. A man who knows that death is not an end but a transition, that consciousness travels beyond flesh, will not be ruled by fear. And so the story was rewritten. Dreams became nonsense. Sleep became waste. And you became compliant. But even lies cannot erase truth. Every morning you wake with the fragments of your travels clinging to you like dew. You have simply been told not to notice. Tonight I ask you to notice. Tonight, when you lay your head down, do not see it as surrender. See it as preparation. Whisper to yourself not, I am going to sleep, but I am about to travel. Let that sentence be your rebellion. Let that thought be your compass. Because once you begin treating sleep as the journey it is, everything changes. You will find yourself waking with sharper memories of places that were not on any map. You will feel the presence of voices that do not speak in words but in currents of meaning. You will see symbols that stir your deepest intuition, telling you truths that no newspaper, no broadcast, no authority ever dared to. And the more you listen, the more you remember. I will not promise it will all be easy. Some nights you will still meet your own shadows. Some nights you will walk through corridors of confusion or fields heavy with fear. But do not run. Face them. For those too are lessons, and when you face them, they dissolve. The monster becomes a guide. The shadow becomes light. This is the alchemy of dreams, the transformation that waits in the dark. And you, with your years, your wisdom, your resilience, are more prepared than you realize. You have lived through nights of grief and days of toil. You know endurance. Now is the time to apply that endurance to the unseen. Each dream you face, each vision you honor, is a fragment of yourself returning home. So tonight, remember, you do not go blank when you sleep. You are not a machine powering down. You are a soul stepping across the threshold into a school older than history. You have always been its student. You have always been its traveler. The only question now is whether you will reclaim that role with awareness. Will you let another night slip by unremembered? Or will you finally pause, ask, and listen? Where you go tonight depends on the courage you carry into the dark. And I, Thoth, will meet you there. You have walked through many years thinking sleep was an end, a pause, a nothingness. But I tell you, sleep is a passage, a school, and whether you remember it or not, you have been attending its lessons every night of your life. You may dismiss them as fragments, as nonsense, but that dismissal is exactly what you were taught to do. And I say to you now, it is time to rebel against that training. It is time to reclaim what you have been doing in secret all along. When your body lies still in the night, your consciousness does not idle. It travels, passes into the astral, a layered realm that reflects who you are inside. You may have thought you were dreaming of strange landscapes, wandering through cities that made no sense, speaking to people who had no place in your waking life. But those were not random illusions. Those were destinations. They were classrooms. They were mirrors. You ask, why do they feel so vivid sometimes? Why does a dream cling to you like smoke for hours after you wake? Because it was not a dream in the sense you were told. It was a memory of where you went, a record of what you encountered, and the emotion it stirred was the proof that it mattered. And I, Thoth, have always known this. I am not speaking to you of fantasy but of law. Astral law. The law that says as within, so without, as above, so below. The astral does not hand you random pictures. It hands you yourself, stretched across landscapes of energy. If you fall asleep angry, you may find yourself chased, cornered, dragged through murky streets. If you fall asleep grateful, you may walk in fields of light, meet guides who carry no faces but shine meaning into your being. You think these are separate worlds. They are not. They are you reflected. And do you see the danger in realizing this? If you admit that every dream is a reflection, then you can no longer hide from yourself. That is why they taught you to ignore. A man who sees his own darkness played out in the astral cannot keep pretending in the daylight. He must confront. He must change. And that, my friend, makes him less obedient to the systems that profit from his blindness. You are in your 60s, and you have lived long enough to know that what you bury does not vanish. The anger you never voiced, the grief you never resolved, the fears you carried like stones in your chest, all of them return in the night. You may have woken drenched in sweat, fleeing from a shadow you couldn't name, or trapped in a loop where the same disaster unfolded again and again. Those were not punishments. They were signals. They were your inner world demanding recognition. And you may ask, what am I to do with these nightmares? You are to stop running. You are to turn and face them, because when you do, the shadow transforms. The attacker may turn into a teacher. The collapse may become a doorway. The fall may become flight. This is the hidden training of the astral. You are being forged. You are being shown, not tormented. And I tell you now, the courage you lacked as a boy is within you now. With years behind you, you can look at fear and not flinch, because you have already lived through worse in waking life. You survived the losses, the disappointments, the regrets. You can survive their echoes in dream. In fact, you can do more than survive. You can be healed. Understand this. The astral is not a playground. It is layered. Some levels are radiant, filled with crystalline structures and beings who speak in currents of wisdom too clear for words. Some levels are dense, heavy, soaked with confusion and pain. Where you land is not luck. It is resonance. It is the frequency you carry as you close your eyes. That is why I tell you the last thought before you sleep is the compass of your journey. You do not wander aimlessly. You are drawn by what you vibrate. And if you doubt this, remember the times when you fell asleep burdened by rage and woke from a nightmare, or the times when you fell asleep with peace and woke with visions that felt like blessings. You know this law already. You have lived it. You simply have not named it. And now I name it for you. The ancient schools of Egypt did not dismiss dreams as tricks. They honored them as sacred. Before initiates slept, they purified themselves. They prepared their minds with intention. They treated sleep as ritual because they knew that the astral was a training ground. The Tibetan monks, too, practiced dream yoga not as entertainment but as rehearsal for death, the great transition. Because when the body finally stills forever, consciousness continues, as it has every night. And the practice of navigating dream prepares you for navigating eternity. You may not have entered those temples, you may not have walked those monasteries, but your bed is no less an altar, your night no less a lesson. And I, Thoth, tell you, reclaim it. Let me speak to the evidence your modern world cannot deny. You have heard of people dreaming of disasters before they struck, of conversations before they occurred, of faces before they were met. You have felt déjà vu yourself, the eerie certainty that you already lived this moment. These are not coincidences. These are the proofs of astral travel. In sleep, you step outside the straight line of time. You touch tomorrow and carry fragments back. Science, though reluctant, has already begun to admit this. Out-of-body experiments, studies of altered states, records of shared dreams, these are cracks in the wall of denial. And still, the world laughs because the world is afraid of what it would mean if you accepted the truth. It would mean you are not chained to the flesh. It would mean death is not the end. It would mean control loses its grip. That is why I tell you to resist. Do not be lulled into mocking yourself. Do not let them convince you that what you see, what you feel, is nonsense. Treat your nights as sacred. Write down what you remember. Honor the symbols even if they seem strange. For symbols are the language of the soul, and the soul does not waste its breath. You may discover that the nightmare you feared was a call to release old wounds. You may discover that the bright vision you dismissed was guidance. You may discover that the people you met were not figments but fellow travelers, souls unchained from their bodies, meeting you in the astral commons. Yes, others. For you are not alone in this school. How else do you explain shared dreams? Two people waking with the same memory, the same place, the same words? These are not illusions. They are meetings, and they matter more than you know. Perhaps you met a loved one who has passed, and the conversation felt more real than any waking talk. Perhaps you met a stranger you later recognized. Perhaps you met a teacher of light who spoke without words but left you knowing something you never studied. These are not fantasies. These are the lessons of the astral, given freely every night. And I say again, are you ready to remember them? Because the danger of ignoring them is not just forgetfulness. It is stagnation. To drift each night without awareness is to waste the most powerful classroom you have been given. To walk blindly through dreams is to let your soul evolve in chains. But to remember, to face, to record, to reflect, this is rebellion. This is awakening. You are not too old. You are not too late. In fact, your age is your strength. You have the patience now to pay attention, the courage to confront, the wisdom to discern. You can step into the astral with awareness, not as a boy trembling in the dark, but as a man who knows that the dark is only a mirror. So tonight, when you drift, I ask you to carry this with you. You are not dreaming. You are traveling. You are not forgetting. You are learning. The astral is not random. It is responsive, and you are its student and its navigator. Say this to yourself before sleep, and you will feel the shift. The corridors will open differently. The faces will linger longer. The lessons will etch deeper, and you will wake not as one who slept, but as one who studied, who remembered, who grew. This is the second truth I lay before you. That sleep is a school, and every dream a lesson. You have only to attend it with eyes open, even when your body rests. And I, Thoth, will walk its halls beside you, as I always have, waiting for you to notice. You have spent a lifetime being told that sleep is passive, that it is a break from living, a kind of blank space you endure until the sun rises again. But you know by now, deep in your bones, that this was never the truth. You have felt the weight of visions that clung to you longer than any day's work. You have woken shaken from nights that seemed more real than the streets you walk. You have tasted the strange certainty that what you dream will come to pass. And I, Thoth, tell you that these are not accidents. They are invitations. The astral is not a carnival you wander through by chance. It is a realm governed by laws as precise as gravity, and the key law is this: where you go depends on who you are when you close your eyes. Vibration is not a metaphor. It is a passport. Every thought you entertain before you surrender to sleep, every emotion you still carry in your chest, every intention you whisper or neglect, that is the compass that sets your course. You may think your nightly travels are random, but they are not. They are navigation. And most of your life you have been navigating unconsciously. Tonight I ask you to wake up to the fact that you are already a navigator, whether you claim the role or not. Think of how many nights you have ended replaying arguments, worrying over bills, stewing in regret. And think of the dreams that followed. Chases, collapses, dark corridors, confusion that pressed down on you like fog. Those were not random nightmares. They were the direct reflection of the energy you carried into sleep. The astral bent itself around your vibration, like water shaping itself to the vessel. And when you entered with bitterness or fear, the landscapes you walked mirrored that density. But you also know the opposite is true. Perhaps you remember the rare night you laid your head down in gratitude, when you fell asleep after a reunion, after laughter, after prayer. And what came? Light, guidance, peace. Those nights you woke renewed, not because your body rested differently, but because your soul traveled differently. This is the law, and you have lived it even if you never named it. Now I name it for you. Intention is the steering wheel, vibration is the fuel, and sleep is the vehicle that carries you where those forces direct. The ancients did not treat this lightly. In the temples, initiates would prepare for sleep as if preparing for voyage. They fasted, they purified, they set intentions. They understood that sleep was not collapse but departure. Their chambers were not bedrooms but gateways, and every night was approached with reverence. You have not been given those temples, but your own room can become one if you treat it so. What you surround yourself with, the last words you speak, the last image you feed your mind, all of it shapes the map of your night. And you, with decades of living behind you, know how much environment matters. You know how a bitter conversation can ruin an entire evening. You know how one kind word can lift a whole day. Do not think this power vanishes when you sleep. It magnifies. The mind quiets, the body loosens, and the subconscious takes the reins. In that moment, your last thought is not a whisper. It is a command. This is why I tell you to be vigilant. Not fearful but intentional. Because what you plant in those final minutes is what you harvest in the night. You were trained to neglect this moment. Modern life lulls you into scrolling, into worrying, into distraction until the body cannot hold its own weight. And so you fall into sleep without awareness, and you wonder why the night gives you chaos. But I say to you, interrupt this pattern. One sentence of intention before sleep can rewrite the course of your journey. One act of gratitude can lift your frequency high enough to shift the entire landscape of your dreams. This is not fantasy. It is law. And when you begin to practice it, you will see. Some will tell you that intention is weak, that the world bends only to action. But you have lived long enough to know that every action begins in thought. Every choice is seated in mind. And in the astral, thought is not seed but law, instant and exact. That is why your intention before sleep is not small. It is decisive. You want healing? Ask. You want guidance? Ask. You want to meet the teacher within you? Ask. And when your vibration matches the clarity of your request, the astral responds. You may wake with knowledge you never studied, answers to questions you never consciously formed, even fragments of language or symbol that are not yours but feel etched into your soul. These are not fantasies. They are memories of the classrooms you attended beyond the flesh. And if you keep honoring them, if you keep recording them, the thread strengthens and the veil thins. Of course, I do not tell you this to paint a picture of endless ease. There are darker places too, and you have walked them. Nightmares that shook you to your core, figures that drained you, places that felt sticky with confusion. These were not traps. They were mirrors of wounds you carried. They were tests asking if you would run again or finally turn and face what you had buried. The ancients called this dream alchemy, the transformation of fear into wisdom, of shadow into light. And you are more ready for this than you believe. You have lived through nights of grief and days of trial. You know that pain avoided festers, but pain faced transforms. The same is true in the astral. The thing that chases you may only want to be embraced. The collapse may only be asking you to release control. The endless loop may only be showing you where you are stuck in waking life. Do not run from these. Face them. And when you do, they change and you change with them. That is the alchemy. That is the training. You see, the astral is not punishment and not reward. It is reflection and lesson. It gives you back exactly what you bring until you learn to bring something different. And the moment you change your vibration, the realm responds instantly. This is why intention is not superstition but navigation. You may wonder why I speak so urgently. It is because your nights have been stolen. The system wanted you to treat them as wasted, as unconscious hours, as emptiness. Because a man who uses his nights well becomes very hard to control. He cannot be manipulated by fear when he has faced fear in its rawest form. He cannot be lulled by lies when he has heard truth spoken in symbols of fire and water across the astral. He cannot be broken by death when he knows the soul travels beyond the body every single night. You, in your 60s, have been through a lifetime of being told to ignore this. And yet, here you are, still curious, still listening, still feeling that tug that there is more. That tug is right. You are not too late. In fact, you are perfectly placed. You have the endurance now to practice intention every night. You have the discipline to carry a journal and record what comes. You have the wisdom to interpret symbols not as nonsense but as mirrors. You are ready to become not just a sleeper but a navigator. And I tell you this, when you begin to navigate your nights, your days change too. You wake with clarity, with direction, with courage. The fears that haunted you lose their grip because you face them in their raw form. The guidance you begged for appears in images and phrases you cannot deny. And slowly, you stop feeling divided between day and night, between conscious and unconscious. You begin to feel whole. That is the real gift. Not just to travel the astral but to integrate it, to carry its lessons into waking life until you are awake all the time. Awake in dream, awake in daylight, awake in truth. This is what I offer you, this is what I have always guarded. The knowledge that you are not bound by body, by time, or by fear. You are a traveler, a student, a creator. Your nights are not wasted. They are sacred. And when you treat them as sacred, you become the kind of man who cannot be fooled by the shallow games of the world. You become a man who remembers who he is. So tonight, when you close your eyes, do not collapse like a machine. Stand inwardly like a king preparing for voyage. Set your intention. Choose your frequency. Speak your desire. And then let go, knowing you have given the astral its coordinates. You will travel as you always have, but now you will travel with awareness. And in that awareness lies the freedom they hoped you would never discover. Remember, sleep is not escape. It is evolution. The astral is not fantasy. It is law. And you, elder of flesh and spirit, are not a dreamer lost in illusions. You are a navigator reclaiming the night. And I, Thoth, will walk with you until you remember fully that you always were.